Hey, all you Pistons, it's Shane here with Show Your Eye for Brandon. We've got a new series. It's called The Justice System Under the Microscope. And with this series, we're going to be talking about the justice system, and we're going to be looking at some case files regarding impaired driving. And it may be impaired driving of all circumstances and results. And we're going to be doing a lot of reading. For the most part, I really want to keep it simple and short. However, there may be some cases where there is lots of information that is very crucial and very necessary when it comes to these cases. And so what the point of all this being is that I want everybody to understand that the Canadian justice system does what it can. However, when it comes to impaired driving, there's some very, very foggy laws, and the system itself, I believe, is unfortunately not set up for impaired driving. And you'll see that as we go throughout these cases, because if you are a victim of impaired driving, you know firsthand what the system has done for you as a victim, which unfortunately isn't very much. And so with that being said, I really want to give a big cautionary warning for those who are victims of impaired driving. The cases that I read out or talk about may be very triggering for you. And so I want to give out a very big warning to those who are victims. This series may cause some triggering thoughts for you, and it may very well be very harmful for your thinking. So I really want to caution you when listening to this series, because I cannot guarantee that it will not make you upset or it will make you angry. I will not guarantee anything from this series that impacts your emotions. Your emotions are justified and they're totally understandable. However, the point of the series being is because I want to bring light to a very dark situation in our legal system, and I feel that this is a very necessary thing. And that's a very sad thing for me to say, because I don't feel the series should be necessary, but it is. So with that being said, I want to talk about the very first case, and this is the case that is pretty much going to be kind of the litmus for any and all cases that I talk about. And so that is Brandon's case. For those of you that don't know, Brandon Thomas was killed by an impaired driver at the age of 17 years old on December 6th of 2012 at around 6 p.m. just outside of Cochrane. And for those of you who don't know, that Brandon was a very good kid. He had a little bit of a fun streak, and he was just, your typical teenager. And you know what? He had big dreams and goals. He wanted to be a mechanic. That was his biggest passion, was cars. And that's part of the reason why Show Your Ride for Brandon is existing the way it is, because Brandon loved all things automotive. But the point is, I want to talk about what happened that night. And I want to talk about what the case file kind of reads out for the most part. I'm not going to go into full details on this because there is a lot of details, but I want to give reference to the file just for those of you that are, going into law potentially, or for those of you that are, looking to study more cases, or for those of you who are just curious and want to know what actually happened in the trial. And so I want to read out the case file here. You can find this under Can L2, which is under your Alberta Law Libraries, and you can read it under the Court of Appeal section. So right now we're looking at, in the Court of Appeal of Alberta, is a citation for R.V. Gibson, 2005, ABCA 41. The date is 2015-0128. Docket is 1401-0106A in the Registry of Calgary. The case is Her Majesty the Queen, respondent, and Ryan Jordan Gibson, the appellant. Now, the memorandum of judgment is under docket 121464275P1. And right now, I'm just going to give off a pretty overall general broad description of the case here. Basically, Ryan Gibson was an impaired driver He was just coming out of Cochrane from a party with his friends. He was drinking over double the legal limit at the age of 22 years old and killed Brandon head on after already hitting two other people on the highway while in the wrong lane. So, reading further in, the courts felt that initially there was a sentence for 2 years. However, the judge did not feel that that was a fit sentence, so they gave him 2 years and 8 months. And then basically it's going to be reading out that, long story short, he was driving in the wrong lane, hit two other people, killed Brandon. Of course, thought his appeal was unfit because, they just were given the circumstances of he had never had any criminal record history, and although he had some minor traffic records and everything like that, they felt that any and all apologies, if you want to say, were considered believable in a sense. I don't want to get too involved in the details behind, the case here. And you can read this up on the file. I already referenced it. And I'll leave a link in the description below for those of you that want to understand more, because there's a fair bit of detail, and it does really link to the criminal code there. But basically, that's kind of what happened in a nutshell. And I don't know about you, but this is just my own personal thoughts here. This is not in reference or of any association with Show Your Edward Brandon. This is my personal opinion that you're going to be hearing here right now. But that is an absolutely garbage sentence. That is absolute garbage. You're telling me that a person who drinks over 2 times the limit, folks, this read 0.171 to 0.181 blood alcohol content as soon as he was breathalyzed. Shortly after. That was about 20 minutes after he had hit and killed Brandon. You're telling me that a sentence of 2 years and 8 months is justified? Folks, I know there's a lot of things that don't make sense in this world, but you know what? This just takes the cake for me. Because you know what? That right there, that says that a 17-year-old, to me, when he's killed by an impaired driver, his life was only worth 2 years and 8 months. Now keep in mind that he didn't actually serve those 2 years and 8 months, but again, that's another case files, and those are another trials that happen on shortly after, and of which the family is still grieving over and is still victimized because of the court systems around this. And there has been future cases shortly after this, and there's been cases up till now that still pretty much resemble this case. And so I want to keep in mind for everybody, please do not drive impaired. Just don't do it. Folks, this was easily avoided. This whole entire case, Brandon's death, was all 100% avoidable. Had Ryan taken the necessary steps to figure out a ride home, he could have had one of his friends just say, hey, nope, stay home, stay here. Just stay here until you're sober and then go home. That could have been at least another 4 or 5 hours. I'm not sure what Ryan's body weight is and everything like that, but when you're 22 years old and you've probably been drinking for a few years already, you could probably sober up within a few hours. It's either that or, call a taxi or an Uber or a family member. These things are so easily avoidable. These cases are absolutely 100% avoidable. I don't care what most people say. When you have resources out there right now that allow you to be safely driven home, I don't think any of this is justifiable. Any of these sentences now, they're all within the realm of 2 years sentencing. I'm just going to say that right now. Some cases may be a little bit more. However, those are pretty rare cases. And for those of you that have been victims of the system and victims of impaired driving, you'll see that on average there's a lot lower sentencing for the most part. There have been cases even where people have just gone off with zero sentencing or so much as a warning for the most part. Maybe having their license, suspended or things like that. But again, this is all going to be coming into light into the series moving forward here. But again, this is just a very small insight as to what the system really is like. And again, if you are a victim of impaired driving, I am sorry I have to talk about this, but these are things that do need to be talked about. I know a lot of people don't like talking about this kind of stuff because we seem to live in a day and age where you're not allowed to talk about certain things that are maybe upsetting or may potentially trigger you. And again, that is not my intention to trigger anybody. I don't want to cause anybody any more harm and bringing up bad memories or bringing up old scars. But there comes to a point where we need to wake up and we need to realize that this is the world that we're living in. The legal system under Canada and impaired driving, it needs to completely be radicalized and really rechanged, because there's countries out there, folks, that actually make impaired driving illegal. And this is an actual fact. And you can look that up. Then there's other countries out there that are super strict on impaired driving in general. The sentencing is much, much harsher. Even in the States have a far harsher sentencing of impaired driving, and other countries out there have a harsher sentencing just around alcohol in general, let alone impaired driving. So why can't Canada seem to step up its game and really get on with this? Because this is a serious, serious issue. There are multiple people who die on a daily basis around impaired driving. But again, these are things we just don't talk about. So folks, I really want to caution you about this series. It is going to be a lot of very harmful details, because I say harmful in a sense that there are some very gruesome details about these events that I just can't really promise you that they're going to be very pretty to hear. So with that being said, again, everybody please take the time to make a plan, call a friend, call a cab, call an Uber, call a designated driving company. For us at Show You Right for Brandon, we have a special partnership with Keys Please out here in Calgary. They've been a huge supporter of us. They have a special program for Brandon, and if you live in the Calgarian area, we encourage you to use that system. They're a wonderful company. They're great people. We fully trust them. They stand behind our message and we stand behind theirs. So with that being said, folks, again, we're going to be really hammering out this justice system, because I want this to be heard from everybody. I want people to know these stories, and I want people to realize the impact and the damage it does to victims who have been affected by impaired driving. So with that being said, everybody, drive safe. Don't drive impaired. Don't drive high. Don't drive drunk. Arrive alive, and please be safe. We hope you enjoy the series, and again, if you have any more questions or if you have your own story, please feel free to email us. Links in the description below. We want to hear all your cases. I want to hear everybody's story. This needs to get out there right now. Let's get going, everybody. Let's make some changes. So, hope you are having an awesome day, and we'll be checking in with you later.